All right, good evening, East to West Magazine Nation. This is Dennis G of DSG Photography for East to West Magazine on location at the world famous Vintage Tattoo. I'm here with Crash Manson. Say hi, Crash.
Hello, how you guys doing?
You know, we were lucky enough to grab him in between tours. You know, he's all over the United States doing shows and tattooing everybody. And he was gracious enough to give us a moment of his time. So, Crash, how long have you been in the game?
Let's see, I did my apprentice in 1998, so it's been about 20 years.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. What would you say would be your biggest motivator on why you push as hard as you do? Like, in the last year, I've only been able to touch base with you, like, physically maybe once, because you're either on the road tattooing, like, you are constantly on the grind.
You know what? It comes from an inner fire within, and that's about the best way I can explain it. It's something inside of me that can't stop. It's an unstoppable force. It's not because of any one mentor, although like mentors and fellow tattoo artists and you know a competitive arena that I'm in helps to keep me motivated. It's a fire inside that truly loves tattooing. When I'm tattooing in that zone, there's no other place on earth I want to be besides with my wife and son.
Now, when I met you, you literally had a shirt on your back, a pair of Levi's, if I'm not mistaken, Chuck Taylors, and you had a list. Now, that list, as far as I know, you completed almost everything on it. Now, when you've reached your goals, what does someone do like yourself to keep on being motivated? Because you're constantly growing. You're not doing the same tattoos that you were doing a year ago. Like, what is that driving force to just keep on pushing outside of your, you say you got your family, your motivator, and your mentors, but like you're taking it from A, you're skipping B through W and ending up at Z on how hard you're pushing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a very humble person, and that's a really nice compliment. I think that what happens is that I've got thousands and thousands, maybe even millions of ideas inside my head. Sort of like projects that I haven't even touched on yet, subject matters within the tattoo arena that I haven't even touched on yet. And they're in totally different directions. So I haven't even begun to break the ice in what I want to achieve and show the world as far as tattooing goes. I mean, specifically right now I'm working on some really dark, romantic horror stuff that's really different than what anybody else is doing. I mean, it's kind of unpolitically correct, you know what I mean? It's really edgy stuff, but I guess that's why they call me Crash Manson.
So let me ask you a question, Crash. We grew up in the street, and we talked about it earlier, and there came a point you said where you were tired of being stepped on. Well, not physically stepped on, but people were taking advantage of your kind-hearted. Now, how in this arena where it just seems like everybody's trying to outdo the next man, are you able to keep that humbleness and still get ahead like you are? Like, you're not the same guy I met 5 years ago.
Well, I tell you what it is. It's all about blinders, and it's not something you can teach yourself or you can learn. It's just about genuinely caring about the single tattoo that's right in front of you at that moment. Nothing else in the world matters in that moment. I'm in that tattoo. No matter how big, how small that tattoo is, that's where I'm at. And it doesn't matter what Joe, Tom, Dick, and Harry are doing, and how good they're doing, or what styles they're doing, or if everybody's doing Day of the Dead stuff. The tattoo I'm doing is the most important tattoo in the world at that time.
So let me ask you this, Crash. For a guy who's been at the top of his game, you've had your lows and your highs, what would you say has been the biggest obstacle you thought that was going to break you in the last 5 years, but has turned into the biggest blessing?
Going back to the beginning, it's kind of like, the first Rocky film, if anybody knows, have seen the Sylvester Stallone Rocky film. Here was a guy who had nothing. He wanted to be a boxer, right? He had a little bit of guidance from a trainer, which, tattooers have mentors, right? But he was beating up, big sides of beef and chasing chickens around in dirty sweatpants. And then all of a sudden, Rocky 2 comes and he wins the big title. Rocky 3 comes, he's got the fucking, he's got the nice car, the Trans Am that was hot at that time in the 80s, the Burt Reynolds one.
Yeah.
He's got the fucking black satin jacket with the tiger thing. Money's everything. He's doing commercials. but you can tell he's not happy. And what happens to Rocky? He loses his edge and he gets knocked out. That's the best thing that ever happened to Rocky, because what happened was he went right back to that fucking beef factory and he started hitting beef. He started chasing chickens. He went back to the basics, and that's what it's all about. That's the core of what's important in your passion. And once you grow away from it, when success hits you and you grow away from it, you know, sometimes we forget, we get cocky, we shit on our friends, you know, and then we find ourselves back, you know, at that, you know, chasing chickens. But it's not a curse, it's a gift. It means you can start from scratch, a fresh start, and you can reinvent yourself. And you can do those things that are going to fucking shock people and just like throw them off guard. Like, whoa, where the fuck did that come from? You know? You're not resting on your laurels. You're hungry again. And even though I'm no spring chicken myself, no pun intended, you know, I feel hungry as I did when I was, you know, 30 or 25, you know?
So let me ask you a question. You sit down tonight, you're by yourself, you're smoking that last cigarette before you go to bed, and you're going to write a letter to yourself 10 years in the past. Like if you're writing a letter and I was able to transport back to 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself? What would be 3 things you would say to yourself?
Wake up every morning, fix my son breakfast, play with him, kiss my wife, talk to her, find out how her day was the day before, ride my motorcycle, and do cool tattoos. And pay my bills, and that's it.
So let me ask you this. Last question I ask at every interview. You got 5 minutes left before the end of your life. Your higher power comes down and says you can talk to one person for 5 minutes. Who would it be? What would you say, and why?
God, that's tough. I would probably talk to my wife, and I would tell her how much I love my son, and to remember Dad for all the good things I did. Don't listen to all the bad things. Know them, but don't listen to them. Learn from them. Learn from them. And I would tell my wife how much I love her and how much she has meant in my life, in my career and otherwise.
Well, Crash, I want to take time out to say thank you for allowing us into your world. I want to give a shout out to E2W magazine.com. Go ahead and check them out. Tell them Dennis G of DSG Photos sent you. Crash, you want to give any shout outs or anything out to any of your people?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to one particular friend and mentor who really has been there in the tattoo world, and that's Bob Austin. He owns Vintage Tattoo Parlor here in Highland Park at 5115 York Boulevard in Los Angeles, and he has been a true friend, a mentor, and
see, there's people calling you trying to get an appointment.
And I gotta go tattoo.
Real quick before we let you go, Crash, how can people get a hold of you?
My number is area code 818-565-9549. You can hear it ringing. Or you can go on Instagram at Crash Manson. It's one word. Or Facebook, it's 2 words. Capital C, Crash, capital M, Manson, or CrashManson.com.